Hello, BookTube. My friend Deb came over today because she was missing the puppy. She was missing Frida. So she came over and Frida squealed up into the supersonic range out of happiness. And because they were going to be here, I mean, Frida is okay being left alone now. She's perfectly okay with it. She's a perfectly behaved little dog. But that doesn't mean she can't have company. and I think Deb probably likes the change of pace, the quiet of this place, the books everywhere, the freedom to read new books, not the ones that you're staring at your face all day long in your own place. So she came over, and that gave me the freedom to go out and do errands. I had lunch with some old friends. Between them, have about as much money as God. and I did a bunch of errands on my own. And of course, because I was out and about, I got books. I went to the Brattle bookshop here in Boston and found a bunch of stuff that I want to show you, just because this is a purely bookish channel. It's just books, 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 and more books. And the first one is a mass market paperback. I've stopped really reading or buying mass market paperbacks except for new romances in Barnes & Noble, just because they accumulate like lint, and they're not a very, for me anymore, they're not a very congenial form to read in. But this is a thing that will never be reprinted. It will never be in trade paperback. And I remember really liking it. And it's a debut, which I have a soft spot for. So when I saw it and I realized how long it had been, 25 years since I read it, I grabbed it since it was very, very cheap. In fact, free. And it's this. It's Jason Pinter's The Mark, which is all about a young, enterprising journalist and his girlfriend who are on the run from a whole bunch of different people who want to kill them in a whole bunch of different ways. I read it back when it came out. It came out as a mass market paperback back in 2007, and I thought it was terrific. And so I'm looking forward to rereading it. And the next two books are an author that I've read everything she's written, and I don't know what to think of it. I don't know quite what to make of it. And I routinely, when I see her, at the Brattle, I get whatever's there, and I reread it. But never systematically, never from front to back, and never in a uniform edition. And I don't ever keep them. I get rid of them. And I don't know why that is. You'd think that she would be utterly fascinating for me, someone that I would need to know really well. She's a British novelist from a bygone era, the 1930s, who's not, I think, known much anymore. Angela Thurkel. And she did a whole bunch of, the two books I got were Wild Strawberries and High Rising. Just because I really like the photographic designs. These are obviously printed in the same print run. So there's I like the photographic design. I like the cover design of it. And I'm hoping that, as is often true with the Brattle Bookshop, that if somebody got rid of these two, they'll get rid of a lot of others. So I might find them next time I'm there. And these are Barsetshire novels. And that some of you may know that because that's the fictional English county that was created by Anthony Trollope as the setting for so many of his works. And you'd think that would make her fascinating to me, because right there at the beginning of every book is a map that has places on it that have the power of myth, if you're a Trollope fan. Gatherum Castle is on here. Framley Parsonage is on here. The Plumstead Episcopi is on here. All the areas, buildings, and neighborhoods are here straight from the Trollope novels. Only these take place in the early 20th century. So the events of Trollope's day are long since gone. And they do have echoes every once in a while in some of these books, but these are mainly they're very much comfort food for a certain generation of British readers. They're very much comfort food. They're meant to be the little, tempest in a teacup of politics and betrayal and whatnot in a little rural British township. And they work really well for that. Once you get into the mind frame of them, they're delightful to read. But you would think that I would, since I love Trollope so much, you would think that I would have gone into these things and tried map out their precise relationship. What is Angela Thurkel saying about what happened to the descendants of all of Trollope's characters? Are there any echoes of his books in these novels? I've never bothered to do that, and I really should. Maybe if I go back to the Brattle and find a whole bunch of these that somebody has unloaded this whole print run with the photographs, maybe I'll just get them all and set them aside and make a project out of reading all of Angela Thurkel's Barsetshire novels. That might be a lot of fun. My memory is that there isn't much in the way of that. That when she was setting these things in Barsetshire and calling them that, she was signaling to her readers a kind of reading rather than direct pastiche or direct continuation. I think she was signaling to her readers something of the idea that those readers had of Trollope's own novels, which was that they're a retreat from the outside world, that they're a kind of idealized rural, small town, Episcopal British life, which is, that's a characterization that's bothered me quite a bit, because if you read Trollope, that's not what you find. But nevertheless, there is an element of comfort in reading Trollope anyway, even though his books are not safe by any means. They deal with a lot of hard questions. It's just something in the way that Trollope writes them. His diction as a writer is very rounded and comforting, even when he's writing about ugly things. And I think that's what she was doing with these things. I think she was signaling to her readers that they could take a deep breath, put their feet up by the fire, and relax with these novels. And she did one every year and had a very successful career of it, so it might have worked. But I should study them. They're not meant to be studied. They're butterflies. To put on a rack like that is to do them a fundamental misfortune. But Angela Thurkell is not here anymore, so I'm free to do what I want. So I will read these two, of course, and I'd probably read them soon. And I'll keep my eye out for the others, because that could be a lot of fun. And the next one is a Penguin classic. This is The Journals of Captain Cook. There he is on the cover, Minutes from Death. And it's journals is the wrong word. This is nautical journals. It's much more along the lines of nautical journals, which, for those of you who haven't read your Patrick O'Brien or your C.F. Forster, these are the journals that he kept on board, where he wasn't writing, Dear Diary, here's what I thought about this lovely sunset. He's writing about the longitude and the latitude and the weather conditions and whatnot. So, I've read these back when I read Dover Classical Library a long time ago, did these with charts and illustrations and whatnot. And I read that, and even at the time I thought, okay, well these aren't meant to be read narratively. These aren't meant to be read as a book. But Penguin publishes a lot of books that aren't meant to be read as books, and I still find them fascinating. And I just recently, you may remember from 200 videos ago, I just recently found a hardcover copy of J.C. Beaglehole's gigantic definitive life of Captain Cook. And every time I've read that book a couple of times, and it always makes me curious to see his great primary documents. This is essential reading if you want to know about Captain Cook. So I don't know. I'll dip into it here and there. I'll, of course, read the introduction and the notes, but I might not do a whole lot of page-by-page reading. This is more for the wall of penguins. Then, this is in many ways the find of the day. I can't believe that I've never read this book, and all day long while I was out and about on subways and on buses and whatnot, in the interstices of the day, I was reading it and absolutely loving it. I'm going to read it tonight without fail, the whole of it, and I think I'm going to love it. It's the autobiography of Agatha Christie. This is a UK paperback that with a thing in the back that I believe in olden days was known as a compact disc, which contains recordings of her voice. It turns out that for like 15 or 20 years of her career, while Christie was doing a new book, a Christie for Christmas, a new Agatha Christie every year like clockwork, and racking up sales numbers year by year that are like nothing just that anybody's ever seen. While she was doing that, whenever she needed a break from that, she would put that away and pull out this ongoing manuscript that she was dictating of her autobiography. Just the strong and weak points, the stuff that sticks out in her memory, and it ended up as a big book. She never finished it. Her children, grandchildren had to do that, and that's this. But the introduction to this volume steadfastly maintains that she would not have objected to this book. That there wasn't much in there. She was so practiced at spinning yarns, even by dictation and even in odd hours snatched from other work, that there really wasn't a whole lot of work to do. A minor amount of repetition because the work was done piecemeal over so many years, but no reconstruction. The editorial apparatus to this book makes the claim, and I kind of believe it, having read a lot of it today. That makes the claim that this would have pleased her. This is the book, essentially the book she would have written. And I've never read it. I've read Agatha Christie from stem to stern. I've never read this book, so I can't wait. I can't wait to actually finish it. I think I'm going to really like it. And then the next one, there's a new book out in June called Reporter by the legendary news reporter Seymour Hersh. It's his memoir of his years in the business, and I just reread it in detail with a pencil in hand, and I'm working on my review. But while I was reading it, I was thinking, well, I've read some of his books, and some of them I liked, some of them I haven't liked. One of them that I thought was brilliant was his book on Kissinger in the Nixon White House. And sure enough, when I went to look for it on my history shelf, it wasn't there. So when I found a copy, this is the one, The Price of Power, I grabbed it. I grabbed it right away. It's a trade paperback, but it's nice and solid, and I'm probably only going to... I doubt I'll beat it up, and I don't think I want this well enough to have it as a hardcover with a dust jacket, so I'm perfectly happy with this the way it is. And it will do practical service in the immediate short run, because I can use it to shore up my review. But I also want to reread it, and I don't think I'm going to want to reread his memoir, so I want to have some Seymour Hersh on the shelf. And then this last one is the kind of historical thing that you only see in a sale lot at the Brattle. You would never see. This would be in the collectibles floor of another used bookstore, or inside for $25, but you wouldn't see it just sitting outside for $1. And yet there it was. This is from 1926. This is The Treasure Ship, which is a beautiful, let me see if I can get you, it's a fully illustrated anthology that was made for children, I believe, but it was made with such discerning editorial insight that I get the impression there's going to be a whole lot of stuff in here that I myself will love, and probably a whole lot of stuff in here that I myself have not read. And it was edited by Lady Cynthia Asquith, who... I want to show you. This is actually this volume is from 1926. It's inscribed from its original gift giver, and it has a pirate verse at the beginning with the tipped in artwork. And Lady Cynthia was she was a writer on her own. She was much better as an editor and a compiler of anthologies than she was as a writer. And she was really good as an editor and compiler of anthologies. She married the upper crust of British society. She was part of the upper crust of British society. She knew everybody. And she had a singular gift for friendship. She made close, deep, involved friends virtually like drawing breath. And as far as I know, never lost a friend for any reason. Which is one of those soft accomplishments that don't get covered in the history books. And I don't know if Lady Cynthia has ever had a biography of her own. And it's a shame. She deserves one. Full of quips, full of great... There's plenty of documentation. You could easily do an 800-page biography of her that would be interesting on every page. And I think all of her anthologies are out of print. So I was overjoyed to see this thing. I knew right away when I was at the Brattle, I saw it spying out. I knew right away what it was. And just grabbed it. So I'm glad to have it. And it would be fun to read through and see how tastes some of these things probably don't age all that well. Others probably age very well. I know P.G. Wodehouse is in here, but we'll see what else. And that's it. That was my my latest Brattle book haul. You've been awash with Brattle books. So now that I can leave the puppy, and especially it was easy today. There was no self-reproach leaving her today because she was in beautiful company. She didn't miss me at all. Other days when I'm leaving her alone just by herself, I know she goes to sleep, but there's still a little twinge of guilt. So we have from 1926, The Treasure Ship. Then The Price of Power by Seymour Hersh, a big, impressive book of his. Then the autobiography of Agatha Christie with recordings of her voice. I'm going to have to find a machine here that can play a CD and see what she sounded like. Then The Journals of Captain Cook in a Penguin Classic for the Penguin Wall. Then Wild Strawberries and High Rising, two of the Barsetshire novels of Angela Thirkell. We'll see. I'll reread. I think I will certainly reread High Rising because it's about an author soon. And see, I don't think I've read that one in a long time. We'll see what I make of it and see if I'm noticing echoes of Trollope. And then The Mark by Jason Pinter, a mass market chase and thriller novel that I haven't read since it first came out. So I'm eager to get to it. And that's it. That was my Brattle haul for today. So I'm sorry, I don't know what order I'm going to post these videos in, but one way or another, it's an absolute mountain of books. I apologize for that. I know this is BookTube, so this is where you're going to talk about books if you're ever going to. But even so, I could talk about soccer every once in a while. Anyway, you knew what I was like when you married me. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.